So let me start with, we've had since morning, a lot of excitement about what India can do in the challenging environment that we have today. And we talked about manufacturing, we talked about, different sectors of the economy. So the one which I want to focus today with my panelists is about building India as a product nation. And the reason why do we need to do it and what should be the playbook for India. So if you really think about it, and we had a discussion in the morning that we need to grow 9 to 10% for the next 20-25 years to achieve our economic growth. Even to do 7 to 8% is going to be difficult and there will always be headwinds. So unless we have some kind of what I would call turbochargers in the economy, things which are going to give you disproportionately higher growth rate, we won't be able to get there. The second point, we talked about the demographic dividend. Let's also be aware that by 2041, we would have peaked our demographic dividend, which means after that, we will again be in the same boat like many other economies. So the window to achieve what we have to achieve is also a limited window. The third thing is we talk about job creation. So on one hand, manufacturing jobs is definitely welcome, but AI and automation will probably, again have an impact on manufacturing job. The gig jobs are there, but they are not very high paying. So how do we create a lot of jobs? And the jobs will only create when you do economic value add. And really being assemblers is not going to give us that economic value add which will really sustain our economy. And Amitabh Kant talked about in the morning about the middle income trap. And the only countries who have gotten out of it are the ones who have focused on product and innovation as an ecosystem. On the strategic side, things are even more blatant. You really can't rely on anybody else. Just think about if some countries decide to shut off our emails and SAP systems and everything else, where does it leave us with? If some country decides to choke our supply chain on our manufacturing side, where do we live? So really in the current world, there are no permanent friends, and we have really got to look out for ourselves. The defense panel earlier talked about how the nature of defense has changed. And just because we had a large army or a large investment in the past doesn't mean we are guaranteed security going forward. And really, I think the most recent war has also shown that unless you have a trusted, secure digital, telecom, and other power infrastructure, we are again exposed. And really, the last part I wanted to say is that we've had a lot of trade negotiations and tariff barriers and all the other stuff being talked about in the last 12 years. Unfortunately for India, we don't have enough bargaining chips. The only two things we have is we have a large market and we have a large talent pool. But we don't bring something that critical to the table, for example, what US does or China does, to be able to drive a good bargain on the deals. And this really gets us very, very highly exposed as a country. So if you really see what we need to do is we have to move from being a consumer of technology to being a producer of technology. I think we've done a good job over the last 15, 20 years, to really be great consumers. But we never focused on becoming producers of the technology. We never focused on becoming product creators. So for example, if you see consumer electronics, we all use a lot of it. But we don't really build anything. We don't design anything. For example, every Indian almost has a mobile phone. But we don't design. And the real money, as we saw in the previous session, is made by the guys who design the phones. Telecom services. Every Indian has a telecom service, but maybe except for Tejas, we really don't have a world-class telecom equipment company which is designing our stuff. Whereas if you take EVs, for example, Tarun is here, who's done a phenomenal job of building a fantastic two-wheeler electric company from India. But the batteries come from somewhere else, the motors come from somewhere else, the electronics come from somewhere else. If you contrast all of this, and for example, from the chemical side, Mirik is here. Again, a lot of the stuff we do is again, not built into the country, not designed, not R&D is not here. And I really think what we missed out, because doing R&D, doing product creation, doing innovation takes time. It takes 10 years time at least, Tejas took over 25 years. Aether has taken around 14, 15 years from the time you started. It takes time. So I think we need to really focus on getting that, because even the next generation of things coming on the AI side, there's no point just being users of AI. If you don't control the models, we don't control the GPUs, if you don't control the infrastructure, the data centers, we again will be exposed. So I really think that we have to learn in this model from the Chinese way of doing things. So when they were creating all this service economy, they realized that it will take 5, 10, 15 years. So they started to focus on creating products. So when they created consumer electronics, they started with EMS, but they started to build their own brands. They started to do their own semiconductors. Same thing in pharma, same thing in EVs, for example, is a great example. They are the largest producer of batteries. In solar, they are the largest producer of cells. So even if we do the energy transition from fossil to non-fossil, if you go one level down, we'll still have to buy the batteries. We still have to, and even just buying the batteries or manufacturing is not good enough, because the value will be captured by the company which is owning the chemistry, the company which is owning the technology for processing the cells into the batteries and so on. So really that is the part I feel which we need to focus on. And where does that work? Because since this room is full of investors, so look at where the money is. So if you look at the market cap of top 10 listed companies in the US, 9 out of those 10 companies are deep tech companies. They are creating technologies, they are creating products, they are creating something which is all R&D and innovation based. You look at the top 25 companies in India by market cap, hardly 3 or 4 companies who are in the tech side, but mostly on the services again. Not a single company which is creating our own products and so on. So the message is very, very clear. The values creation in the world has shifted in a different dimensions. And we as an economy, we as a country need to look at that side of things and really focus on where the money is being made, because that's really where the investment should happen and so on and so forth. And going one level further down, so how do these companies create all the technologies, create all the products? It's very simple. You have to invest in R&D. And again, by R&D, it doesn't mean, very risky stuff which we're going to do some research in the lab which may or may not be successful. R&D, in a sense, is about development, about product creation, about taking the innovations which exist and creating something out of it. So I think this is really where, again, we have a very big wake-up call, because as a country, we are among all the major economies, and especially the ones who have transitioned from the middle income trap and become a developed economy in the last 50 years, as Mr. Kant was saying. They all focused on R&D and really created innovative economy. Whereas we are only at about, 0.6, 0.7% of our GDP is in R&D, whereas all the other competitors of ours are much, much higher. And not only that, the per capita spending on R&D from the private sector is much lower. So on the positive side of this, the government of India recently, and some of us have been involved in that process, has created a 1 lakh crore R&D and innovation fund, which is for a 50-year basis. So it's about a $10 billion fund which can be recharged every 5, 10 years. So it's a lot of money, which on a matching basis will be given to private sector. So we are talking of literally a $20 billion of R&D corpus which is available today to be given to private sector companies, startups, listed companies, and even larger corporates on a matching basis. So this is really where the government is taking the first step in increasing the intensity of R&D, because without R&D, without product creation, without innovation, I don't think we can accomplish the goals that we have set out. So really, what's the game plan for India in terms of creating a product economy? So the good news is all the ingredients are already in place. So we have a lot of talent. That's not a problem. I think there are enough capable people. And again, we'll listen to the stories of Tarun and Mirik and from my own experience, Tejas, that we can build whatever needs to be built in the country. So talent is there. We have a very large home market. And in fact, in the context of defense also, the other panel was saying that even if you sell in the Indian market to begin with, it's a fairly large market. And if you look at the different sectors of economy, I think we have a large enough market to start off at least, right? Third is, I think, the geopolitical advantage. The world is now, neither they want really to be totally dependent on US, nor on China. So I think the whole new shift about a third front emerging, I think India has a great opportunity to be there. And government, of course, is clearly understanding all this and supporting it. So I think the playbook for India really is we have to focus on few things. We can't do all of them. And clearly focus on things where new things are happening. So for example, there's a transition from a technology of your older kind to the newer kind, for example, in electric vehicles, or in drug discovery, or in medical technologies, or in telecommunications, or in aviation, for example. A lot of those areas are areas which are ripe for us. And then the last part is we really have to have an ecosystem approach. Neither the large corporates can do it, neither the startups can do it by themselves. How can all this come together between private sector and government, and can we make this happen?